Amazing. Today we are live and we actually are on our last webinar, SEO Leadership webinar for the year. And we are ending things off strong with an amazing SEO. Today we have on John, the head of SEO from Inc. Digital. John has an incredible line of experience working as head of SEO and digital marketing within companies such as Climb Online and now moving into Inc. Digital as well. He has been a head of SEO in about 3 roles as well and has an incredible line of experience. So, John, we're so excited to end off the year and end off SEO leadership with you coming on. How are you keeping?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, all good. As I was just sort of saying in the green room, as it were, we've had a solid end to the year. Got a lot of good pipeline going, and I think SEO is whilst it had probably a bit of a wobble when AI came out. I think it's got a sort of a newfound resurgence, shall we say?
Mm.
So yeah, doing well, thank you, and thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. That's happy to hear. John, if you could take us through a little bit about how you got into SEO and tell us a little bit about how you got through into where you are now at Inc.
Mhm.
Digital, just for our listeners to gather a little bit about who John is and your experience, that would be great.
Yeah, no worries. I'll try and distill 21 years in 21 seconds or something. But so I think, yeah, it all kind of came about where I just sort of heard that you could make money on the internet really when it was like very, very new. Got fascinated with that, just like fell down the rabbit hole, making my own little websites and stuff. Then realized I needed to, of course, get traffic to websites to try and get those affiliate commissions. And then I didn't want to pay for the traffic ultimately, and then discovered SEO. Hated it to begin with because it was just far too, oh, just a nightmare. Just percentage of keywords and all that nonsense. And and then yeah, I just sort of stuck with it. Basically, I got an email course that was emailed to me each week, and I just followed the steps and started getting results. And then from a career point of view, when I was doing that all in my own time after I finished uni, I was working at a call center, became a manager there, and then there was basically either change my shift pattern or take redundancy. So I just took the plunge. I thought, right, this is it now. Time to go for SEO full time. And the day after my final shift at the call center, I started SEO at Ladbrokes. So in the gambling niche and
Mm.
casino. So I've really dived in head first. It was a
Yeah.
massive eye opener. And also it was my learning curve just like skyrocketed because of course I was then surrounded by other people and then like it was just amazing to learn off them. And then fast forward 2 years, and then from that point onwards, I've been agency side. So the vast majority of my career has been agency side with a smidgen of in-house, and of course absorbing all the great people around you in terms of how they conduct themselves in meetings, how they talk about things, and predominantly been SEO. But I've got a great appreciation for all the other channels, how they mix in. And just a quick final point is I nearly actually completely sidestepped into social media when that was all kicking off. It really excited me about that, almost to the point of where I just got bored of SEO. But
Mm.
because SEO then kind of evolved into it's just so much more three-dimensional than it was, you can
Mm.
still get kind of the audience focused work in, if you see what I mean, in SEO
Mm.
nowadays. So I stuck with SEO in the end because it kind of by luck, really, I guess, in terms of timing, kind of transitioned into a more holistic viewpoint rather than just stuffing keywords on pages.
Yeah, awesome. That's amazing.
Excellent. And
Fantastic.
yeah, John, you kind of touched on it. Was Ladbrokes like a good place to start? Because obviously it is very intense, but especially maybe back then, I don't want to say that they were in it, but there was like any sort of like black hat strategies and stuff like that. Like it does get you sort of thinking outside the box in that sort of respect. Is that something that you sort of took on board and sort of used further up the line? Maybe not the strategies, but that sort of way of thinking.
Yeah, I think actually that's probably a fair point because it won't be for the faint of heart, of course, as you touched upon, because it was like very hardcore, shall we say, in terms of like techniques and whatnot. But I think in terms of outside the box thinking, so it was simple little things such as I was going and using kind of Web 2.0 platforms as they were known back in the day just to get links, and I was getting those platforms in their own right ranking as well. So I had in effect two slices of the pie in respect of you had the platform that was ranking. For those who have been around the internet for a very, very long time, you may have known of a platform called Squidoo. Basically, you would just create your own page, bang in a load of content, bang in a load of links, and that could rank very quickly. So I was getting that ranking, and then the Ladbrokes equivalent page ranking as well. So yeah, outside the box thinking for sure. I think that really lends itself to how you can then bring that forward to kind of, shall we say, more traditional niches.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome. I think just to build off of that question, it is such an interesting niche to sort of step into and an industry to step into, especially like just coming into and properly like diving headfirst into the SEO industry. Do you have any advice to SEOs that are looking to step into a niche similar to that or an industry similar to that?
Completely embrace it. Like you've really got to keep on top of things in terms of just general trends, how things are being done, how the search engines are interpreting things, and then just really just think of it, right? How can I make my company, if I'm in-house, or the client, just absolutely dominate that space? And that's not just about getting more links. That's not just about writing more content. That's about how can you position yourself as the brand that is the how should we say the go-to brand for that particular service, or entertainment, whatever it is. And then it's a case of, okay, well, how can I help facilitate that? And generally speaking, it's going to be quite content led, of course, but it is a case of then exploring the other formats of content as well, because we're blessed now that the search engines can actually not only interpret but rank those other formats as well in their own right, be it on YouTube or in the SERPs directly. And then, of course, how can that help facilitate building that general brand exposure, so that if anyone is on a different platform, such as YouTube, for instance, they still get an exposure to that brand. And then the byproduct is nice sort of link equity and general authority being passed through as well anyway. So I think certainly just like really embrace the niche that you're working in. It could be a boring niche. It could be a very competitive niche. It could be something that you didn't even know existed before you got involved in it, and just take that time to learn about it, understand the audience behind it, and what their typical pain points are throughout the entire journey before they are likely to make a decision on either your client or the company that you work for if it's in-house.
Awesome. Amazing.
And John, I was looking through LinkedIn and I saw you post recently about like how like brute force SEO used to work back in the day, and you mentioned even on the call about like keyword stuffing and things like that. But you also mentioned at the start that you guys are doing well. The pipeline's sort of grown nicely coming up to Christmas time. What sort of is working for your clients at the minute, and what sort of led to that sort of success?
So in order to attract the leads at the moment, it's actually a lot of that is inbound through SEO. And so we've got, now this isn't like revolutionary or anything like that, it's 101 stuff, but what has happened from day one is certainly before my time, and when Mike started up the company, he was adamant to have those sort of dedicated landing pages for the particular sectors, and then getting ranked for those, SEO for X industry, etc. So that's what is contributing to a lot of our pipeline. So of course, on the flip side of it, we're showing that we can do what we say we can do. And secondly, fortunately, we actually are getting genuinely good leads from that, because the age-old sort of descriptor of like, okay, someone's searching for SEO companies and stuff like that, and if you're ranking number one, you get terrible leads, and that absolutely can happen. But because it's niched down further, then at least it's somewhat pre-qualified as well. It's not just generic SEO companies that people are searching for. And then of course, moving on to like what we're doing for clients, is we are shifting heavily into that multimedia approach. So the way I see it is, SEO really, even if you're just calling it SEO, I mean, I've liked to call it search experience optimization, really, to tell you the truth. It's not just engine, it's like it can be any platform, but ultimately your role really is to get that content out there and that brand awareness, and moving into the different mediums, be it video, be it audio, be it images, of course, long form content, slicing, dicing it, getting it distributed across different platforms where the audiences are going to be at any stage of the journey, is really what's going to be paying dividends. Because as I say, you've got that sort of two-pronged approach of general awareness. You're going to be a lot more front of mind when people are coming across you multiple times across different platforms, but then also consequently, you're going to have all of that kind of perceived authority in the search engine's eyes because you're everywhere. And then you can connect the dots. You can link from one platform to another. You can link from one bit of content to another. And then the final sort of piece on top of that is really going to town on the authorship side of things and making sure that if at all possible, we have from the client's end any people or individuals that want to be associated as they are the expert on that particular thing. So if we've got travel clients, have we in effect got an expert on Asia? Have we got an expert on America? Have we got an expert on Europe? And then any content that is produced around those topics is assigned to that individual or those individuals, and then marked up from a kind of a schema point of view to say, right, that's the author. They've got a dedicated bio with all of their experience, any accreditations, and then also if we turn any blog post into a video, that then links back to the author bio and says article was originally written by that person as well. So that's how we're approaching things sort of gradually across the rest of this year and transitioning into 2025.
Excellent. And then I know, just to sort of build off that, you mentioned about like search in sort of general. Obviously it depends very much on the client budget, what sort of niche industry they're in and stuff like that as well. But has there been a switch of like a lot of focus on like the likes like TikTok and stuff like that at the minute, or is it mainly just sticking to like Google and Bing?
Typically it's still Google and Bing. From our point of view anyway. Of course there are other agencies and clients that have kind of officially, for want of a better description, gone into the TikTok side of things, but that's I see it as it's not really focus on focus on platform per se. It's focus on medium. So of course, it's when you do get to a position of where you are able to repurpose and reformat that sort of say written content, then yes, you would factor in the play for, okay, the slight nuance on TikTok is ABC, the slight nuance for YouTube is XYZ. So yeah, absolutely. I think those sort of approaches will allow you to be a lot more timeless than if you just go, okay, well, Google and Google's the messiah, because whilst the search volume is going to be there and stuff, the journey is so fragmented now that you're missing out on opportunity. And especially as Google is kind of getting more and more zero-click type search results, you're naturally going to lose organic search clicks, and then it needs to be supplemented in some way, shape, or form. Even if you get less clicks throughout the entirety of from now to the end of time, but you're getting that brand awareness, and then people just go direct to you or they search for your brand name. That's got to be something. You've got to aim for that, really.
Love it. Love it.
Do you, I think this is more of a personal question, but like, or personal approach, but like, do you, how do you approach sort of the omnipresence of a brand? Would you sort of look at it as a, have your fingers in every pot kind of thing and have like a massive omnipresence? Or how do you sort of assess which platforms are working best? And do you then start prioritizing those more, or how do you sort of approach that?
It's more the latter, but it all starts from the SEO side of things first anyway. So you would do all your research in terms of keyword research, but also so we create what we call pain point calendars. So it's not just your kind of your content calendar in respect of we're going to write about this month and stuff like that. It's all rooted in, okay, what things are people going to be searching for and trying to find answers for that will fit within that niche and fit within that client's sort of service remit. So that's all produced from the get-go. Then from a choosing of platform point of view, it is a case of course, understanding. I think ultimately, really, like you can genuinely think, right, default, definitely YouTube, right? No ifs, no buts, no maybes. So I would say that we focus on mastering that platform first, and we're talking end to end. So we're talking the blog post itself is genuinely turned into a script, turned into a video, and then fully optimized for YouTube on that upload, not just chucked up on a channel, for instance. Everything end to end is fully optimized. And then from that point onwards, it's almost like, okay, for this particular niche, LinkedIn could be the obvious bet, and therefore what nuances do we need to do for that? And then there's a stream of work that is, okay, right, we've got that content, how do we turn it into a LinkedIn post? How do we turn it into a video suitable for LinkedIn, for instance? And then also conversely, if it happens to be, say, a TikTok or an Instagram, it's then really, okay, we're not just going to have exactly the same clip sort of distributed out. There might be sort of different nuances based on audience as well. So it's more about mastering each platform to a suitable level before you then just go, okay, well, I'm just going to do 10 platforms regardless, just to hope that something will stick. That's our approach anyway. We prefer to sort of specifically target based on audience and based on the client, and how do we absolutely maximize that channel first before we move on to another one.
Awesome, interesting. Just to build off of that as well, you actually about an hour ago made a post about email marketing, and I wanted to actually cover this as well, because in the post you sort of mentioned, how sort of strong an email marketing campaign can be if actually crafted correctly. So I wanted to sort of poke your buttons and just like ask, what does make a great email marketing campaign in your or a strong one in your mind?
Yeah, sorry, my simplistic email mind in respect of obviously you've got dedicated people that are going to be like, if they listen to this, they'll go, Christ, you're basic. But long and short of it is again, it's like you've kind of got to think to yourself, right, that's probably one of the channels that you are going to own, really, because even your website, you could argue, is likely to start to diminish in terms of getting traffic direct to your website and stuff. So in effect, you've got all of these walled gardens. You've got your email database, which you kind of own. You've got your website, which you own, and then you've got, say all these other satellites of, okay, my YouTube channel, that's rented, you don't own that. You've got your TikTok platform, all of that kind of stuff is in effect rented platforms. So they could bin you off at any given notice, like for whatever reason. So you need to understand that email is so important, and SMS as well. To be fair, they're kind of interchangeable in that respect of being able to communicate directly to your client or prospect via email and SMS or WhatsApp, for instance. So what makes a good campaign is ultimately, if you're able to marry user behavior to what kind of messaging then goes out, you're of course going to get a lot more out of that, rather than just this generic half kind of, can I say, half-assed effort in respect of you just send out a message to everyone. There's no segmentation, stuff like that. Like I say, it's 101 stuff. I'm not going to turn around and say, oh, I'm an email expert and this is what makes a great campaign. But I think ultimately just really taking that time to think about it first, and great copy as well. I think copywriting, is so underutilized for ad copy, for email, for landing pages. Sales copy, I think, is almost like just a forgotten art in a lot of respects, because you think, okay, well, I've just got to get 30 characters up there, or a subject line that will do, Black Friday sale now, whatever it is. Just think what kind of copy is actually going to convert as well, or take an action or invoke an emotion. So I think if you kind of really take a step back and think of all those aspects, you'll be far better along a better email campaign than just kind of going, oh, okay, well, I've got a 1,000 name list, I'm just going to send out an email every month as a newsletter or a promotion. So that to me is what a good email campaign would look like, or conversely SMS.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And John, just to like take like a step away from that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think digital, where you're obviously working at the minute, is that a merger of two agencies or like a rebranding of one?
A rebrand, yeah. So
Rebrand?
so it was Mr. SEO is in Mike's initials, and then because we started transitioning to more digital services, Ink Digital was then born, because it just was a better name for it ultimately. And Mike had to give up his baby and eventually redirect that domain. So it wasn't a merger; it was just a rebrand.
Excellent. And was there any sort of challenges during that sort of rebranding? Anything that sort of came up that you didn't quite think about at the start, or anything like that?
A couple of little bits and pieces, but I joined just as that finished, so I avoided any of that. But certainly, what I do know though is that there was a real comprehensive plan in respect of, I think, don't quote me, but I think the rebrand really actually took about a year before the button was pressed, because everything was trying to be put in place as well. And also, now don't get me wrong, it wasn't 100% bulletproof, because it never is, but the migration as well was well thought out, and which we'd obviously do for a client as well, be it we're migrating to a brand new domain, or we're rebranding and restructuring, all that kind of stuff. So we sort of ate our own dog food, so to speak, in respect of we planned that out fully, and then executed as well cautiously. So yeah, I avoided any kind of headaches because I just sort of rolled in after it had been done. But yeah, I'm sure Mike had a few sleepless nights.
Yeah, no, brilliant, excellent. And then on that, you mentioned again, just to go back to sort of the steady sort of growth you have at the minute, especially with the strong pipeline. When, as like a head of SEO, do you feel it's the right time to pull the trigger on a new hire whenever clients do start rolling in? Is it based on like a quarterly basis, monthly basis? How do you decide when's the right time to hire?
A hard question to answer, but the best answer I can try and give is that we look at ultimately estimated capacity required for at least 2 months in advance.
Okay.
So whilst we don't strictly adhere to this in respect of clients, once they pay for a certain amount of hours, it's like as soon as midnight strikes we stop work or anything like that. But as a guidance internally, it's a case of, okay, if a retainer is this amount, this is approximately how much time should be spent on that account for the month, so we can kind of get a bit of a balance. And therefore, of course, we've got a totalization of, right, each person has this amount of allocation assigned to them for the month, and then because we've got a sort of at least a 2 month ahead view, we can then start to see, right, okay, it's really creeping up now in terms of allocation being used. We need to start to think about the next step, and also what kind of person do we need in respect to skill sets across the board as well. So yeah, in a lot of respects, we're kind of always a little bit bubbling under the surface every single month of, right, okay, when should we consider it? Because we know, and you definitely know, how long it can take. Because it's not even just about, are you good at SEO? There's a plethora of things that agencies will look for, and they're all going to be completely unique in some respects, be it the soft skills or the type of personality, or if they want them to be a specialist in, say, link acquisition or technical SEO or whatever it may be. So yeah, we've always got it bubbling away in the background, and we've got that foresight at least 2 months in advance.
Excellent. And do you have like a preferred sort of structure of how you want your team to be built, whether it's have like specialists or pods, or more of like a collaborative approach between everybody?
So we currently have pods. So it's just ultimately, so when it does get bigger and bigger, we've got in effect a line manager for each pod. So individuals will then have someone to report up into, and between them and myself, we work on the structure of the development plans as well. So we have quarterly development plans whereby it's sort of broken into two parts of sort of competency led, and then also a set of objectives. So for that particular quarter, we would like you to achieve X, and it's very tangible. And then of course, that's also built in respect of, if they wanted to niche down. So let's say, for instance, there was someone who does all of SEO, let's just say, and then they really have a bit of a passion for, say, technical SEO, and we can facilitate that. The personal development plans then sort of change tact and gradually moves them further down that line, so we can then get a refresh of, okay, well, the competency for the technical side of things is thus, and the objectives are therefore also going to be set to help you achieve moving in from sort of general SEO to technical SEO, for instance. So in terms of our structure, that's how it's done. And then for the head of SEO side of things, if anything, I'm sort of moving into sort of general operations, really, to tell you the truth. So it's more the Charlie and Casey are kind of the account directors that will have client work, but also help with the development of the teams that they run. And then we work together as a three to make sure that from a kind of a process point of view and a development point of view, we're all on the same page, and then that cascades down to the rest of the team.
Excellent. Love that. Love the sort of development and training part of that as well. I think that's mega.
Yeah, that sounds very neat. I wanted to sort of flip the question around actually, and ask you about your, because you've been at a head of SEO or in that position for your past 3 roles, and those were all agency roles, if I'm correct.
That's right. Yep.
How was it sort of, what was your onboarding processes like, and did you go into each role with, a 90-day plan, or things like that? And how was it sort of merging yourself into the company as a leader? And do you have any tips to others that are moving into a leadership role like the head of SEO role, that sort of, some any advice?
So I think firstly, as you touched upon, there's a rough plan in my mind in respect of what I'd like to hopefully be doing in the first 90 days. The majority of that is actually just absorbing. So literally get into the company, don't make any rash decisions, understand how things are currently done. Then sort of in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, right, okay, is that necessarily the most efficient way, or could there be a better way? If there isn't, perfect, great, that's a box already ticked. But also at the same time, I've just always been like this because I've experienced it myself, and I hope that I've never done it, but I don't typically appreciate when someone comes in and it's a bull in a china shop and there's zero appreciation. It's just change, 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 change. Now, I'm not going to turn around and say I haven't changed a lot, because I have, but it's very much a case of I really want to sort of absorb what is being done first and then taking it methodically rather than just ripping it all up to, just try and make a statement. I think if people come into a place just to try and make a statement, I think that can rub people up the wrong way. So I would say, if anything, just if you feel that you're going to be under pressure to get some results like super quick and things like that, I'd help try and set those expectations. Say, look, appreciate the fact that I've been brought in to make wholesale changes, etc. But I do really need to take that time to understand what is currently happening, because there's no point in me just willy-nilly changing things, because it could end up worse. And you ultimately don't want to bring me in to make things worse. You want me to bring me in to make things better. So allow me that time within reason, of course. So certainly absorb everything, including culture as well, and including individual personalities and stuff, because if you're managing people, you'll work with one person in a very, very different way to another. They're not all one size fits all. Some people are a lot more reactive to, I wouldn't say a stick, but certainly like that, put the fire under them in terms of, right, you've got this, you can do this, you can really sort of push. And then other people are just a lot more chill in respect of, I enjoy what I do. I've got no major desires to sort of progress or whatever it is, and just accept that and understand that there's different strengths across the team as well. So in terms of going into a leadership role, I think really, to tell you the truth, especially if it's your first time, most of your time is listening and observing to begin with. And then you can kind of set your stall out and make a plan from there. The other thing, which might not necessarily be too what's the word, too exciting for people to sort of want to take on board, but sometimes you have to sort of set your stall out, as in your assertiveness. So within reason, like, you've really got to strike that balance. And my way of doing it versus another manager's way of doing it, of course, is going to be very, very different. But I've always had this opinion of, you'll have a great time as long as you respect the boundaries. In respect, if I do tell you that stuff needs to be done, genuinely it is for a reason. I'm not one of these people that's just like, oh, for the sake of it, can you do this just to tick a box? If I start to see that you're not really adhering to that, then I have to, as unpleasant as it is, I have to, from early doors, set my stall out of, right, okay, you did cross a line there, and you need to let them know that as well, because otherwise it's going to be chaos, and you're going to get walked over. And I learned something once in my call center days, of where, when I was not telling people off, it's a terrible way of describing it, but asserting something, I felt so bad after. And I apologized once to someone, not that it was needed. I just felt that bad. I felt I needed to apologize. And I got told, that just completely erodes your authority in that situation, because you've apologized, especially as there was nothing to apologize about. You're just doing your job. And if anything, you're trying to help them. So there are a few things that I learned over the God knows how many years now, that I'd say there's a few unpleasantries that you need to do. It's just part and parcel of it. But also it's a great learning experience. And then just really absorb and watch how things are going before you make any rash decisions and change things.
And how do you sort of combat that? Because that by itself is like a fine line to sort of try and walk as well. How do you combat that with trying to achieve like buy-in as well from obviously the junior member staff? If you're coming into like a new agency, you want them to have obviously confidence in you and in your direction and stuff like that. How do you sort of get that balance and act right? Is there any sort of
that's a good question. The way I've done it is share the mission or the vision. Right, it's like, this is being done. Right, so for instance, there's been several changes in my year here, and it's things like project management tool going from one to another. The beloved tool that they did use, I've come along and said, right, I feel we need to move over to another one. And of course, understandably, it's like, oh Christ, this is like, what's the point? This is like all that kind of stuff. Totally get it, absolutely get it. But there's a rationale behind that, and the transition for how we use the project management projects to now is really paying dividends. And it's just a case of, I just shared that. I said, right, I've done this in the past. Everyone had the same thought process before it really took hold. There was sort of a little bit of sort of up in arms of, oh God, what's the point in this change and all that kind of stuff. But this is then what happened after it really took us to the next level, because we started having clients that were this sort of level of retainer. We got the clients with this level of retainer, and we managed them so much more impactfully that they stayed with us longer. And that's ultimately what it's about. So share the vision / mission with them as to why you think things are needing to be done in this particular way, and that really does help with buy-in.
And just sort of one last question, I don't want to like sort of poke too much into this, but how do you get them on board by, is there ever like a scenario where you would ask for their advice, but again, it's trying to find the balance where you don't want to ask for their advice and feel like they're almost running it and they don't need you, sort of thing? It's like, how do you sort of get that way as well?
I think you can periodically, well, actually relatively frequently do that. So it is a case of, if they come to you with a question, part of that would be then saying, right, okay, well, what do you think you would do? And then you can counsel them in that respect. And so that would then sort of give them the balance of, you are like, because I genuinely respect everyone's opinion and I value it massively, because sometimes it's a case of I'm doing a particular thing and there's a few devil's advocates in the room, and that's so valuable, because then it's like, actually, yeah, of course, that's a bloody good point. I didn't think of that. And so you allow them to have that, and bring it up. And like, I don't care if someone says, oh yeah, but you didn't think of this, like, and it's, oh thank Christ you brought it up, because you could have saved us like I don't know, months of work or whatever it is. So I think allowing them to realize that absolutely they can, like, just because I happen to say something, they can bring up, so, oh yeah, but what ifs? Like, obviously there's a balance of like not being too pessimistic and always like poo-pooing it and everything like that. But of course, if they feel that they can bring that to the table, and I genuinely listen and sort of accept the bloody good points, then I think that really helps breed that sort of culture of where they feel that they can input, they feel that they can bring ideas to the table. And then sometimes it is a case that they've got this excellent idea and I help them execute it. So that then forms part of their PDP, for instance. Okay, fine, you brought to the table that we should do this as a service. I will work with you in terms of bringing that to life, because I agree, I think that's a great idea. So that's how I would approach it, or do approach it.
Excellent. Love that.
Awesome. It's very strong. Sorry, John, we are running a little bit over, but I do have one last question, and I was saving it for, especially for this webinar as well. As this is the last episode of 2024, and we're heading into 2025, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on the future of SEO, just especially going into 2025. Do you have any expectations or?
Yes, so probably two topics around that. One is, I'm really expecting organic traffic as a metric to decline over the next few years. So when you're doing your year-on-year comparisons, there's a high chance it's actually going to be down year on year. So definitely a reconfiguration of how you communicate success to the clients. I think that's going to be big. So you don't necessarily change your tactics or anything, because I still think everything's rooted in what we do today is going to get the results. It's just, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to re-educate ourselves and rethink ourselves, rethink how we communicate that success to the clients, because we're used to traditional metrics since probably the dawn of the internet, and being able to track things. I think that needs to shift. The other thing is, and I've sort of touched upon it earlier in the conversation, is if you act like a media brand, you will survive, no matter what Google throws at you, no matter what behavioral shifts change, because people consume content. They can consume content on whatever platform or medium they like. I don't care, because as long as you've got that SEO kind of wherewithal in respect of, I want to get in front of the right audience for the right sort of phases of their journey before they make a purchase, what format do I need it in? And then I know how to optimize it. I know how to optimize for YouTube like heavily, because of my SEO knowledge. And you just take that knowledge, and if anything, just don't care about Google anymore. Like, you shouldn't, to be fair, you shouldn't have ever optimized for Google. You should always optimize for the user, and that allows you to then have that freedom to go, okay, well, if Google goes up the wall, it doesn't matter. I've got my knowledge to be able to move on to platform X, whatever that may be in the future. So I think tactics and everything like that, ways of how you do SEO, I don't think is really going to change an awful lot. I think probably those that are missing out on things like schema markup, etc., are definitely going to be missing a trick, because I think that, in combination with making sure you're visible on Bing, will help with your appearances in the large language models. But I think, generally speaking, it's going to remain relatively similar throughout the foreseeable future. But just how you report on it is going to differ, and really go to town on the cross-media approach.
Love it. What an answer.
Yeah. That was a strong ending. All right, well, John, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your input and advice, and yeah, just thank you so much. Your insights were absolutely incredible, and everyone listening, have a happy end of 2024, and yeah, we'll see you again in 2025. Thanks, John, for coming.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Cheers, Joe.